Azure Beach was one of the most beautiful and popular tourist destinations in the north of the country. People flocked here in summer to enjoy the beauty of the azure sea and the warm sunshine. However, no one knew the dark secrets hidden within this beach. One summer night, a group of university friends decided to spend the night at the beach. They set up their tent close to the water and began telling stories of bravery they had all heard. Soon, the stories took a turn for the eerie and terrifying. One of the friends, Sarah, recounted an old tale about the beach. She said that many years ago, a young woman named Mary had gone missing at this beach. It was said that one day she entered the sea and never returned. Locals claimed that her spirit still roamed the shore, calling to anyone who ventured into the water alone. Her friends laughed it off, dismissing it as just a legend. But that night, Sarah felt as though someone was watching her. The wave sounds of the sea grew softer, and the wind carried an eerie whisper. Sarah's sense of unease intensified, and she told her friends she didn't want to go to the restroom alone. After a while, they decided to go to sleep. Sarah drifted off, but suddenly woke up to a strange sound. She peered out of the tent and noticed that her friend Ollie, who had been sleeping at the end of the tent, had vanished. Sarah warned her friends, and they all rushed outside. The beach was dark and silent. The only sounds were the waves crashing and the wind rustling through the trees. They called out Ollie's name but received no answer. Fear gripped them. They looked toward the water, and suddenly one friend, Merdad, thought perhaps Ollie had gone for a swim. They headed towards the water, calling out Alice's name. Suddenly, they heard a thin, high-pitched laugh coming from the depths of the sea. Sarah was terrified and shouted, "It's Mary." They resolved to head to the nearest cottage to seek help. On the way, Merdad boldly said, "We have to go into the water and find him." The others were anxious and unsure of what to do. Ultimately, 3 of them, along with Merdad, chose to enter the sea. As they waded into the water, an overwhelming sense of coldness and mystery enveloped them. The sea appeared calm and quiet. They called out for Ollie and slowly ventured deeper. Suddenly, they spotted a large shadow beneath the water. Sarah screamed, "It's Ollie!" But as they got closer, the shadow swiftly disappeared. They were left perplexed and disoriented as they retreated toward the shore. There, they saw Ollie sitting and laughing. Sarah and her friends rushed to him angrily, demanding where he had been. Ollie laughed and said, "I just went for a swim." But everyone realized that the laughter they had heard was not his at all. They hurried back to the cottage, trying to stay awake until morning. As dawn broke, they resolved to calm each other down, insisting that there was nothing frightening about the beach. Yet deep down, they knew that dark secrets lingered in those waters. Days passed, and they continued their vacation. However, Sarah made the impulsive decision to swim in the sea alone. Despite her friends' warnings, she ignored them. As she entered the water, no one ever saw her again. Sarah disappeared, and her friends were left in a state of panic. After extensive searches, no trace of her was found. Time and again, this story repeated itself. People who ventured into the sea alone simply vanished. Eventually, Azure Beach became a forbidden place. Even the elders began telling children cautionary tales about it. It was said that anyone who learned the beach's secrets would never return. From that day forward, no one dared to visit Azure Beach, and over time, the place faded into oblivion, while beneath its waters, secrets remained hidden, never to be revealed. In a distant land adorned with stunning beaches, brilliant sunshine, and crystal-clear waters, a secluded beach known as Shadow Beach had gained a certain notoriety. With its breathtaking beauty and lush green mountains surrounding it, this beach became an attractive spot for tourists. However, few were aware of the terrifying stories and superstitions lingering around it. One summer night, 4 friends named Alex, Nick, Sarah, and London decided to spend a few days at Shadow Beach. They intended to enjoy water sports and leisure by the sea. As they arrived at the beach, the sun was setting, casting stunning hues of orange and red across the sky. Around the beach, there were no signs of human life. The friends sat around a campfire, sharing creepy stories. Sarah told the tale of creatures lurking in the darkness of the night, who would sometimes take individuals who swam alone in the sea, never to return. Her friends laughed it off, dismissing it as just a legend. However, deep down, Sarah felt an odd sense of unease. Alex, taking Nick's suggestion, decided to go for a swim. Sarah became anxious and said, "Be careful, Alex." Alex merely chuckled and replied, "Don't worry, I know how to swim." He dashed toward the water, gradually disappearing from view. Minutes passed, but Alex did not return. Sarah's heart raced as she said, "I'm worried. We have to look for him." Nick and London joined her, heading toward the sea. At that moment, they heard strange sounds, a soft, beautiful laugh that somehow felt eerie. They called out for Alex but received no answer. Shadows danced ominously in the calm water. They decided to enter the sea together. As they ventured deeper, they felt something mysterious and bizarre pulling them downwards. Suddenly, London shouted, "Get out! We need to go back." But by the time they reached the shore, Alex was still nowhere to be found. Terrified and bewildered, Sarah, Nick, and London continued their search. They looked into the water and noticed something shimmering deep below, a faint light gradually drawing nearer. Sarah shouted, "Is that you, Alex?" The light moved closer, and they realized a familiar yet haunting face was emerging from under the water. Alex, looking weak and lifeless, floated towards the surface, but he seemed far removed from vitality and energy. Nick rushed toward him, trying to pull him out of the water, but Alex was incredibly weak. Sarah and London rushed to help Nick. Eventually, they managed to drag Alex back to the shore. As Alex lay weakly on the sand, slowly regaining consciousness, he looked at his friends and whispered, They told me not to go." His friends, deeply worried, bombarded him with questions, but he just stared at the sea, trembling. Sarah asked, "What did you see? Who were they?" Alex slowly replied, "Creatures. In the water. They want to take us to their world." The friends exchanged terrified glances. That night, they couldn't sleep, sitting by the fire until morning. Yet Alex continued gazing at the sea, a sense of dread weighing heavily on his heart. The next day, they decided it was time to leave the beach. But before departing, Sarah told Alex, "I think we won't forget this place. I need to do some research on these stories." Weeks later, after returning home, Sarah began searching for information about Shadow Beach. She discovered numerous accounts of people going missing in this area and learned that every year, 1 or 2 individuals disappeared under mysterious circumstances. Sarah realized that this beach was a kind of purgatory for souls buried deep beneath the waves, and they awaited new visitors to draw into their underwater realm. She resolved to write a book about these stories to warn others. Ultimately, Shadow Beach transformed into a haunting reminder of terror and uncertainty. Every year, tourists would flock to this beach, but very few dared to swim alone. The stories of Alex and the psychological trauma they endured continued to live on in the narration of locals and visitors, never forgotten. However, deep in the ocean, the mysterious creatures still awaited new victims to invite into their dark world. In one of the most beautiful countries in the world, there existed a beach known as the Lost Beach, which had gained fame for its natural beauty. With its crystal-clear waters, soft sands, and lush palm trees, this beach became a paradise for travelers. However, several legends and terrifying stories surrounded this place, casting a shadow over the hearts of locals and tourists alike. The story began when a group of young adults decided to spend their summer vacation at this beach. They planned to enjoy water sports and the tranquility of the shore for several days. However, one night, everything took a horrifying turn. On the first night, the group sat around a campfire, chatting and sharing stories. One of their friends, Amir, recounted a strange tale. He said that many years ago, a young woman named Layla had disappeared at this beach. It was said that while swimming, a large wave had pulled her into the sea, and she was never seen again. Locals claim that Layla's spirit still roamed the beach, occasionally drawing unsuspecting individuals into the water. His friends laughed off the story, dismissing it as just a legend. However, Amir argued seriously, we should be careful. These stories are not always baseless. After this, one of the friends, Sahar, jokingly said, if there is really a spirit out there, maybe we can ask her to show us how to swim better. Sahar decided to go into the water alone. Despite an uneasy feeling creeping over her, she eventually stepped into the clear water and began to swim. Just a few minutes later, Sahar suddenly screamed from the water, as if she felt a terrible pain. Her friends became alarmed and called out to her, but she didn't respond. Amir yelled, Sahar, come back to us. But she began to sink slowly into the depths of the sea and vanished. Her friends were left in sheer terror and confusion. Everything changed in a matter of minutes. Sahar's friends, trembling with fear, decided they had to search for her. They easily spotted Sahar below the water, but their inability to act made no difference. They saw fear and horror written across each other's faces, unable to comprehend what was happening. Suddenly, another friend, Nazanin, shouted, we have to go. She's in danger. But as soon as Nazanin entered the water, the violent waves pushed them back toward the shore. Immediately after this incident, the group fled, trying to distance themselves from the beach. However, the further they moved away, the more they felt an oppressive force weighing down on them. That night, none of them could sleep, and every sound sent them into a panic. The next day, despite extensive searching for Sahar, no trace of her was found. As night fell and a chilling wind blew, Amir and the other friends realized they could no longer stay there. Yet, for deeper reasons, they could not bring themselves to leave the beach. After a few days, the group decided to end their vacation and leave the beach. But even after departing, a sense of anxiety and dread lingered in their hearts. The legend of Layla and her presence continued to cast a heavy shadow over them. Years later, some of them chose to write about their haunted memories of the lost joys and their unforgettable journey without Sahar. They wanted to raise awareness about the dangers they had encountered and keep the legends of the lost beach alive. Now, the lost beach had turned into a haunting place. Explorers and tourists flocked there, drawn by the stories of Sahar. Some dismissed it as a myth, while others regarded it as a bitter truth. However, no one could deny the reality that deep within the sea, mysterious and dark secrets remained hidden. From that day forward, this beach became a city for spirits and shadows, forever etched in the memories of those who dared to visit.